Hi Ian, we're on the couch at my father's house once more. Got some great interviews coming up for you. Wonderful stories of ordinary people with miraculous lives. If you're enjoying these videos, or even if you're not, give it a like, a share, subscribe, help us along here a little. Big shout out to my friends at Everyday Exorcist, Grant Pemberton and Kat Michaels. Get on to Everyday Exorcist, subscribe to those guys. Great stories, amazing things that you'll hear from those guys. Yeah. So anyway, today I'm here with Marlee neighbour. Marlee is the worship leader at my father's house. And so, Marlee, you grew up as a Christian in a pastor's family, so you're a PK.
Yeah.
So you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes.
Growing up in a family where you're the firstborn.
I am a classic
of three girls.
Firstborn.
And you like to be in control a lot, I believe.
Let's not talk about that.
All right, okay. So, tell us what it was like growing up as a pastor's kid.
So, pastor's kid, both my parents were young pastors. My grandfather was a pastor, and that's my mum's dad. So mum grew up as a pastor's kid. Both my parents are firstborns as well, so classic. Firstborn, pastor's kid, pastor's kid, pastor's kid. It's a bit of a theme going on there. But anyway, my early childhood, up until 7 years old, I grew up in the church. And mum and dad started their own church quite young. And that was thriving. They had an epic young adults ministry happening. Both of them were worship pastors. Then they became pastors of their own church. And so I just grew up with worship nights. I grew up with home group nights, being a little kid, just wanting to be a part of it, but being told to go to my room, to go to bed. So that was my early childhood. I remember making jewellery and selling it to all of the congregation as a kid, and it was just my life. Sunday mornings, Sunday evenings was church.
So, that sounds like a really good life.
I actually loved it.
Yeah.
I was the centre of attention. There wasn't many other kids. It was just all young adults.
Okay,
yeah, it was great.
You got to around 12 years old and things began to go sideways.
Yeah.
Is that about right?
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to talk to us a bit about that?
Yeah, so up until 7 I was in the church, and then my mum and dad, they left the church, and 7 years later mum and dad separated. So I was 12, I was 14 when they separated, so 12 was the beginning of teenagehood for me. As any teenage girl starts going through changes, and it's just hard enough becoming a teenager, let alone being a teenager in the midst of your family totally separating. So I didn't know much of a lead up for my parents' separation. They separated when I was 14. And I just decided to become radical, and I became a hippie. So...
Well, hang on. Just before you go there, you're 14 years old, your parents break up.
Yeah.
Right? And suddenly you just become a hippie. There's a little more in there. So, how devastating was it? So when obviously at some point you were given the news... your parents are separating. You want to talk to us about that bit in there? What was happening inside of you?
I think I went into denial massively. So it felt like a rug had been pulled out from underneath me. I thought that my family was happy family. My family was everything. It was very secure. I just thought that my world was good. And then when my parents separated, it was everything that I knew that was safe was destroyed. And so it felt like a massive chasm had been, it was like the earth had just fallen within me, and I just buried into that and fell into that, and all I wanted to do was run. I didn't want to face it. I didn't want to confront it. I didn't even want to accept what I was feeling. I just wanted to run. I wanted to escape. I I wanted to run away from school. I wanted to run away from home. I did run away from home. I wanted just any sort of out to cover up all of my feelings. I decided to get dreadlocks. Do you want me to share that story?
Yeah, sure. So you at 14, you left home, you took off,
Yep.
You headed up into the central coast of New South Wales, I believe.
I did.
Yeah. And hooked up with some hippies.
I did.
Yeah.
So I had some friends that were dreadlocked hippies, and they were musicians, and they really took me under their wing, and I found safety in them. And because my parents were separating and home felt chaotic, I felt like I belonged, I was being cared for and belonged in something, and so I just ran into that. And so I kind of came underneath these hippies' wings, and they lived up in Central Coast, New South Wales. So I just really kind of did a trip up to go see them, and I asked if they would give me dreadlocks. And little did I know at the time the significance of dreadlocks for me. They ended up representing a safe place and a hiding and a covering for me.
Another personality.
A complete other personality. To the point, so for me, when I was just before I became a teenager, so primary school, I was bullied a lot, like a lot, and then I became the bully. A lot of people know that bullies often had been bullied themselves, so I became the bully. And I had no friends. I got to the point where I just had no friends, and I hated it. I couldn't stand it. And I thought the transition between primary school and high school, I didn't know anyone that was going to be at the high school that I was going to. And I thought, if I can change who I am, this is an opportune moment. And I couldn't handle not having friends because of the aloneness that caused within me. So again, I just had this constant aloneness. And that's what my parents' separation, that cemented that. But it really kind of began in the bullying stage for me at primary school, when I started to be bullied and then became the bully. And so when I transitioned to high school, I just wanted friends. That's all I wanted. And so I decided I'm going to become the most positive person so that everyone will want to be my friend. And so again, I created another alternative personality in that. And so as soon as I started high school, I encouraged everyone and anyone just because I wanted them to then reciprocate that back to me, and I felt some sort of acceptance and cared for and loved, and like I was okay. It was just a little bit of okayness for my inner world. And so I don't really know.
Okay, so when you're in the hippie, when you're hooked up with the hippies, and, you know, for people who, some people know the hippie culture, some people don't know the hippie culture. But you know, hippies are mostly universally known, and hippie culture generally has got a lot of drugs in it, a lot of, you know, messed up life in it. But you kind of never got into that side of the hippie culture. You hung around the festival culture, but you somehow stayed out of the whole drug culture, and you stayed out of all the dark side of it.
Yeah.
How did that come about? Because that's surprising.
I think only Jesus.
Yeah.
Honestly, only Jesus. I was never interested in drugs. I was fascinated by what drugs did to people, and I loved watching people when they were on drugs because it was comedic for me. But I wasn't interested in it at all.
And so you never got caught up in the debauchery side of it. You stayed out of that.
Yeah.
Extraordinary. For me, I mean, that's a miracle in and of itself. Because, you know, I grew up in you know, I was born in 1959, so I grew up through the 60s and the 70s, and I know hippies, and that whole culture. It's just amazing to me that you can be in the culture and be so preserved from it. So you're in that life for a while. Then I believe you did an exchange student thing, so you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yep, so 15 years old, again on the back end of my parents separating, I wanted to escape. And so I discovered that there was an opportunity to go to Brazil for a year, and I took it. I was like, if I can run away for a whole year to a whole other country, that's a massive tick for me, because all I wanted to do was escape. So I went to Brazil for a whole year. I loved it. Again, there's extraordinary stories of how Jesus preserved me and protected me in that I didn't know until hindsight. I forgot to mention that after my parents separated, I linked that with God separating my family. And so anything to do with Jesus or anything to do with God, I didn't want to have a bar of it. So my early childhood was Christian, all my teenagehood, nothing to do with Jesus. But I was hungry for the supernatural. I knew it was real. I'd had a supernatural encounter with Jesus when I was really young, when I was a kid, and I got baptized, and I had this supernatural encounter with Jesus as a kid, and I remember journaling about it all the time. So I knew the supernatural was real. I knew that Jesus was real, but I linked my parents' separation with God, and the question constantly came up with, if you're real, why would you allow this to happen to me? Which is a common question that a lot of people would ask. And so that just equaled pain. So anything to do with God in my teenage years, I didn't want to have a bar.
So you started to play in some of the New Age stuff. You got into yoga, I believe.
Heavily.
But you just didn't play in the yoga. You got deep in it.
I did.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah.
About what's in there?
A lot. There's a lot in there. And it's really, really real. The supernatural is really real. A lot of people, but I'll say alternative people, they lean towards the supernatural because they know that it's real. And I reckon you could almost ask any human being, do you think that the supernatural is real? And a lot of them will say yes, because there's a knowing, there's a sense that there's something else out there, but they don't really know what it is. And I'd had encounters with Jesus when I was young, and I'd had encounters with the demonic when I was young too. I would always have these dreams. I've had these senses, these visions. I would sense things in the room. So I was very aware. And so when I did yoga, I also am just really innocent in things. If someone says that this is good, I'll lean in and
probably I might have used the word naive, but anyway,
naive is a great
innocent
word.
is okay.
And so I didn't really know what I was doing, and I was always just hungry for the more. So I would go into these yoga sessions, and my yoga teacher would go into these meditations, and she'd lead us into these guided meditations, and I'd start having these encounters, and I would have these beings come and visit me, and then they would ask me to follow them, and so I would follow them to these alternate realities, and we would go to these places, and I'd have these moments where I would see, it was as if I would then lift out of my body and see myself laying there on the ground, and it was this moment of, do I go or do I stay? And I would go, and I'd have these moments where I'd follow these beings, and they'd take me to their world, and then they'd come back with me, and they're coming back with me. That then meant that I needed a lot of deliverance in my later years.
So there came a point where we came to the conclusion these weren't little happy.
They appeared as happy fairies, actually. They appeared as happy fairies. Right. And then when it came to doing ministry, I saw them for what they really were, and they destroyed my life. But part of that is you get stuck in places.
So in from memory, and I'm just thinking about something that I remember a time where Jesus was fixing some fragmentation within your personality that came about from these spirits, and this will sound weird to people, kind of taking over parts of your personality and owning them. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. So your recommendation would be I wouldn't get into yoga if I were you. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you did your year in Brazil, 16. You're back in Australia at what age?
Oh, I came back at 16. So I left 15, had my 16.
You left at 15?
I left at 15 by myself in Brazil. I learnt how to speak Portuguese. I lived on the edge of the favelas, which is the edge of the slums. So on one side of the road was safe because the cops were allowed there and they could look after. On the other side of the same road was unsafe territory and cops were not allowed to go. So it was being a white person with dreadlocks was wild.
So, 14, you run away, join the hippie movement. 15, you go by yourself to the nation of Brazil as an exchange student.
Yes.
Okay. I would put that in the category of being a nutter. As a father who has 2 sons and 2 daughters,
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh my God.
It's a miracle that I'm alive today. That's all I can say.
Okay, so you're back at 16, and that's about the time I met you, right?
Yeah.
At 16, and, you know, I was in Victoria visiting a couple of pastors.
Makes it 13 years. that I've
13
known you.
years. So I was visiting a couple of pastors in Victoria, and Marlee was babysitting their kids.
Yeah.
We would call it babysitting. They weren't babies, they were young boys. And I remember when I went into the house, here's this young 16-year-old girl with a mop for her hair, dreadlocks, and she had big dreadlocks. All of that, but more.
Yeah.
And yeah, she looked like a hippie, and looked like she hadn't had a shower for a month. And so I slipped her some money, and I think I gave you $50.
You did.
And I said,
I remember it so clearly.
you said, what's that for? And I said, don't worry, it's not my money.
Yeah.
And and that was it. And Marlee got this puzzled look on her face.
I was like, who is this man?
So
He gives me $50 and says it's not even his.
so anyway, so that's the first time I met you, and I kind of knew then. I thought, something's going to go on with you, right? And what you didn't know at the time is when I give somebody something like that, there's like something attached to it. It's almost like there's a blessing here that will mark you. It's almost like a tracker, Jesus coming for you. So when I did that, so I thought, oh, yeah, you're going. So there came a point where you obviously didn't lose the mad side of you too quickly. So
It's just tamed a little.
you got yourself a van
Yeah.
and went on a trek. You want to tell us that story?
So I bought a van. I painted it fluoro green with a bright rainbow fairy on the very front of the van. And I called my van, because you got to name your vehicles.
So how old were you at this point?
I was 18.
Okay.
I called my van Misty because it was going to take me to the mystical places. And I had my dreadlocks at the time, true blue hippie. I had no money. So I'd actually borrowed $5,500 from my grandparents, from my nan, to buy this van and to pay it off. I had $70 to my name at this point. I didn't tell my parents I had no money because they wouldn't let me go. I left Melbourne, which is the bottom part of Australia, with the idea to go all the way up to Darwin through the centre of Australia. So it's like an 8-day. It took me 8 days to drive. And I left with only $70 in my bank account, or in my wallet. I didn't even have a bank account. I had a wallet.
Statistically, you should be a skeleton
Yeah.
lying in the red dust on the side of the road with the van rusting out somewhere, run out of petrol. But anyway, that didn't happen, right?
No.
Okay.
So I left Melbourne to go to Darwin. I drove up there with a friend of mine, and I only had my $70.
So your friend was another girl?
Yep.
And how old was she?
Same age.
Okay.
And we were both musicians. So we would pull up at petrol stations or gas stations, and I'd pull out my guitar case and I'd just start playing my guitar because I had no money to either buy food or petrol. I couldn't even fill up my car. And so I was stuck until I had some money. So I'd just be playing at the gas station, playing my guitar, hoping people would put in some money. Or I'd play at caravan parks and go around to all of the people, like we call them grey nomads. The grey nomads, and I'd say, 4 o'clock I'm going to put on a show, bring a cup of tea and a chair, and I'm going to put on a show. And I'd have my guitar case out and they'd start putting money in my guitar case. And by the time I got to Darwin, to Uluru, which is the centre of Australia, so my halfway point, every single day a Christian would come up to me, and I've got me and my friend, and they would come directly up to me, they'd hand me $50, and they would ask if they could pray for me. And because I had Christian background, I was like, sure, that's fine. And so I'd take their $50, they'd pray for me, and my friend would go, why the heck is this happening? And it happened every single day from the centre of Australia upwards. And it started to get to the point where I started to freak out, because I thought, oh, if God is really real, why did he let my parents separate? Because remember, my point of pain was my parents separating, and I thought that God allowed that, or he made it happen, or why didn't he stop it? And so as soon as I thought maybe God's real, because I'd buried that, all my pain started to surface. And so I both thought that God was coming after me, but also my pain really started to surface, and I started to really freak out. So every single day someone's walking straight up to me, gives me $50 and asks if they could pray for me. And I started to get worried. And I get to a point where I've passed the Welcome to Darwin sign, which is the top of Australia. And I've passed this sign, and suddenly, remember, I'm in the van with my friend, and I had no stereo in my van, by the way, so it was just like quiet. And this sound echoed in my entire van, and it wasn't external. My friend couldn't hear it. I couldn't hear it as though you're speaking to me, but I heard it as if the whole atmosphere of my van had sound, and it was echoing sound. It was external to me, and the sound was a voice, and the voice said, before you leave Darwin, I'm going to pay off your van. So I'd borrowed $5,500 from my grandma to buy this van. So I kind of put that to the side. I go to Darwin, my friend leaves, so she just did the drive up with me. She flew back home to Melbourne. I'm in Darwin for about 4 months, and I'm busking away. So I've got my guitar out, I go to the grocery stores, I go anywhere, and I'm just playing away. And people would put in $50 notes, $100 notes, all the time. I'm making hundreds and hundreds of dollars every single day just by getting my guitar out and playing. And I eventually get enough money to pay off my van. So I get the last $500 and I send it to my nan. And I call my nan up and I say, Nan, I've just sent you the last $500. I've completely paid off my van. And my nan, who's a Christian, she says, oh, Marlee, God's clearly looking out for you. And I just remember that voice, before you leave Darwin, I'm going to pay off your van. And suddenly it was like all my insides went, is God really real? And I just remembered the voice, and I was like, oh my goodness. I started to freak out a little bit. I had like this little moment of like, And so I messaged my mum. Oh no, I called my mum. This is a Saturday. I called mum. I said, oh mum, I've just paid off the last of my van. And my mum, who's recently started reconnecting with church again, she goes, oh Marlee, there's a church up in Darwin. They meet once a month and they're meeting tomorrow. You should go check it out. And I said, Mum, I got 2 gigs on tomorrow. There's no way that I can go to church, and I did not want to go to church. I'm like, I've got 2 gigs. That's not going to be able to happen. Sorry, Mum. I hang up the phone, and I suddenly get 2 text messages, and they're from both of the places that I've got a gig at, and both gigs get cancelled as soon as I hang up the phone. So again, I'm starting to freak out at this point, totally freaking out, and I suddenly go, okay, maybe God is real. And I have this feeling like, am I going to get smited? Is he going to smite me? Like, I was like, there's been too many things that have been happening, and they're happening faster and faster and faster. And it's just this moment of, oh, maybe God is real. I think he's trying to talk to me. And so I then messaged Mum. I said, oh, funny, both gigs got cancelled. Maybe you should give me the address of this church. And so I then go to this church. And I did not want to be there. I didn't want to be there. I felt like I had bugs inside my body that were like scaling up and down my skin.
So you had bugs?
Yeah. So it was like bugs in my skin, and I just wanted to run away from the building. I didn't want to have anything to do with it whatsoever. I remember the worship was going, and I was at the back of the room, and I just wanted out. So as soon as church finished, I was trying to leave as soon as I could. So I went out those windows. And then this little old lady, she just grabbed me and started talking to me. And I'm pretty sure that every single church has a little old lady. Some people say there might be angels in disguise. And she's talking away, and she's just talking and talking and talking. And I'm like, woman, can you not see my... can you not read my body language right now? I just want out, and I'm trying to give her nothing, and she's just talking away. And suddenly, it's like my whole body got really hot, and then it got really cold. And then I heard this sound behind my head, and it was the sound of an old cassette, an old film cassette player. It was a and I heard it just behind my head, and I went into this 360 vision, and everything around me went blurred. And suddenly I saw myself getting baptized underneath the waterfall that I was camping in front of. And I just saw myself getting baptized, and I had this internal dialogue with Jesus, and I said, God, if this is really you, why would I get baptized? I'm a hippie, I've got dreadlocks, it's not cool. And I'm just thinking, what am I going to tell my friends when I get back home? And suddenly the same voice that I heard in my van responded to me. And the voice was very calm, very gentle. And he just said, Marlee, I just want to do life with you. And it was like the right size key that just got into my heart and unlocked my heart, everything that I'd held together. And I bawled. I was a mess, and I turned to this old lady who's still talking to me, by the way. And I had just got snot running out of my nose and tears streaming down my face. And she's like, are you okay? And I said, I need to go get baptized. I have to go get baptized. I just met Jesus. So I have to go get baptized. And so she goes and tells the pastor of this church, and a whole bunch of us all go down to this waterfall, the waterfall that I was camping in front of. And we all go down to go get baptized. And I'm in my van, and I'm driving alone. It's, again, another miracle that I made it there alive, because I was totally under the power of the Spirit. And I'm driving, crying, laughing, crying, laughing, crying, laughing. I can barely see 2 feet in front of me on the road. And I had a really serious conversation with Jesus. And I said, Jesus, if I'm saying yes to you, I'm saying yes to the realness of this moment. I'm saying yes to following you with the realness of this moment forever. I said, I don't want the churchianity. I don't want the religious stuff. I want the realness of this moment every single day for the rest of my life. And it was just one of those moments where I just said yes to with my entire being. And I would call it a turning point moment where nothing, everything changed right in that moment where I said yes to Jesus. Nothing from that moment onwards was ever the same. And so I got baptized, and I messaged the only person that I knew that knew the Jesus that I'd just encountered. And it was my next door neighbour, who I'd been babysitting her kids. And every time I'd babysit her kids, she would tell me of a miracle story. And it was the only time that I would cry. I shut down all my emotions as a teenager. And I could not help but cry when I would hear her share a miracle story. And this is the next door neighbour that Faz had just started connecting with and discipling. So I messaged her and I said, hey, I've just met the Jesus that you've been telling me about. I'm coming home. Can I live with you? I need to learn all about him. And so I lived with her and her husband for 2 years in my van, which then upgraded to a caravan. And I lived with them for 2 years. I worked one day a week.
They lived in a house?
They lived in a van. I lived in a van in their backyard. And I worked 1 day a week. And I spent 6 days a week just like a puppy. I was just sitting at their feet, and I was doing anything and everything that I could. When Faz and Carol would come down and stay with them for a few weeks, I would just learn and learn and learn and get ministry after ministry after ministry after ministry, day in, day out.
So you started to go through a whole lot of changes.
Yeah.
You found Jesus, you're gone.
Yeah. You're
in it.
Yeah.
You're in the deep water now. I remember at that time, because we were doing mission trips to Indonesia, which we will continue to do, and a few of the team from Victoria decided they would come, so you came. How many mission trips did you come on with us?
4, I think.
4, okay.
Maybe
so
3.
In those first couple of trips, I had pictures of you with your dreadlocks on those first couple of trips.
Yeah.
But you had a couple of real watershed events take place in those first couple of trips. So in the first trip, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that something really dramatic happened in the area of music and worship and that whole deal for you.
Yeah.
Because you and your family are musicians, and there's a good side and a bad side to the music world, and you got yourself caught into the whole situation of another music world.
Yeah.
Right? And you and your sisters are incredible singers, very gifted, and something happened in Indonesia. Right?
Yeah.
And I think it was. Now I'll just give you a bit of brief. I think we were in a meeting where we're doing a youth camp. I think there was about between 400 and 500 young people, and we were dealing with the music issue.
Yeah.
And so we were exposing
the power
the
of
demonic infiltration that happens in people's lives through music.
Yeah.
And what that was all about. So you were in that meeting. Do you want to talk about what happened to you in that meeting?
Yeah. Again, another defining moment. What happened internally in that meeting is I felt like, again, I had bugs crawling on the inside of me and like I was going to vomit up my dinner. That's what it felt like. I just knew. I was like, when Faz was talking, and he was talking about the influence of the power of music and how it seduces your soul, and the power of the words when you're allowing your soul to be influenced by the words and partner with the words. Satan can come straight in there and totally steer that ship. And he's talking, and I'm going, oh my goodness, this is a thing. And I knew it was a thing. And I've been a musician my whole life. I was self-taught. I taught myself how to play guitar, and I just fell in love with music. But I also knew the power of music and the influence of music. I would often be gigging, and I knew what it was like to have the entire crowd eating out of the palm of your hand. I knew how to bring people in. I knew how to lift the entire crowd up to the point where they were reaching a point of ecstasy because they were all together singing. And I loved the power of feeling like I did that. I led them to this point. I knew the influence of it. And for me, when Faz started talking about the power of music, I couldn't help but think, oh, this is Satan's playground. This is, he's got dominion over this area. I just knew it. And I had an encounter. So Faz ended up doing ministry. He got all of us Aussies up first. And he told, I don't know if you remember this, but he told all of the Indonesians, he said, I don't want anyone to lay hands on you. You guys are going to watch what the power of God does to this entire group of people without anyone even laying hands on them. This is the power of God. And so all these little Indonesians are standing up like wide-eyed, waiting and watching. And Faz broke the power of the music gods that were influencing us. And I was in the middle of the row, and I buckled over and had some deliverance. But then I had an encounter which was quite interesting. And the entire room around me went really dark. And it was like I was in outer space, in just the atmosphere, a really dark atmosphere. And I heard this laugh, and it was this like, not quite like that, but this deep laugh that was just right behind me. And I turned, and it was as if I could see Satan was there, but I couldn't see him, but I knew he was there. And what I could see was all these cords, like fishing lines, running out. On the end of the fishing lines were all these hooks, and what was happening was every time someone had been moved by their soul with the song, and they'd start singing the words, that's all Satan needed was power of agreement. And so he would, through music, it was like he just had all these fishing lines, and he's laughing and he's like, little do they know, little do they know, little do they know. And I suddenly could see, oh my goodness, Satan's hooking everyone through music. He's just pulling the strings. That's all he needs. All he needs is your power of agreement, and your soul is being given over. And it wrecked me, because I realised this is Satan's playing field. And little do we know the power of the influence of music upon our soul to give ourselves over. We're always serving one person. Is it going to be God, or is it going to be the devil? You're always serving someone. And music is a massive way that we don't realise influences and stirs our soul for us to be hooked by the devil in that.
So how, after that experience, because that was quite common for us to deal with that issue with people, throughout Christianity, and a lot of people don't quite grasp the level of influence and the significance of it that all kinds of music has. And I would even suggest that, not everything that is produced within the Christian world is necessarily emanating from the Spirit of God. And so this area needs to be looked at. So anyway, we're going to go back to this, but maybe we'll come to that on another day. So you get free from things to do with bad inroads from the enemy. How did that change your music life?
I felt like I'd always felt a little bit like I'd been set apart, but I couldn't not set myself apart, if that makes sense.
So what does that mean? What do you mean set yourself apart? It's Christian language.
It is Christian language.
So for people that aren't aware of that, what do you mean by set apart?
I always knew that I had a gift, a musical gift in me. And even when I was up in Darwin, just before I'd met Jesus, almost on a daily basis, so very regularly, I'd be at a gig and someone would come up to me and say, hey, has anyone signed you up yet? And I was, again, naive. I was like, what do you mean signed me up? And they'd go, oh, produced your music. And within me, it was like inside of myself had a no. Like, I just couldn't do it. I felt like I was selling myself. I felt like I was selling my soul. And so part of me, this separating myself, felt like I couldn't play in two fields.
Yeah, it's good.
I didn't want to play in two fields. And I remember coming back from this particular ministry trip after just dealing with this music stuff. And it sounds weird, but I remember telling so many people, I said, I didn't know holiness had a feeling. It sounds really strange, but that's all I could say. I said I didn't know holiness had a feeling. And inside of me, I felt like I'd been washed. I felt like I didn't realise that I was dirty. It's like, if you spend your whole day in the mud and you just think that it's part of your skin until it gets washed off and you realise it's actually not your skin. Underneath is the realness of your real skin. So
did you find that you couldn't play certain kinds of music anymore?
I couldn't even handle it. I couldn't handle secular songs. I couldn't handle some worship, just based on what was happening behind the scenes and
so something that was very broad for you now has become very, very narrow. Now, some people might say that, it's a little extreme or...
Call me an extremist.
But really what it is the Spirit of God in you has now got his hands on the music.
Yeah.
And within your heart, there's I can't compromise that.
Yes. It's exactly it.
And to compromise that would be to engage with something that's not him.
Yes.
Okay, it's really good. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about was the second trip to Indo. After that trip, you came home, and of course all of those trips were incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, there were, blind seeing, deaf hearing, cripples walking, thousands coming to Christ, and those missions trips. There was just presence and power of God everywhere. So you come home...
Changed my life.
Yeah. Well, it tends to do that.
Yeah.
So you come home and you go through this experience to do with your dreads. right? Because at that point, she still looked like, she had a mop on her head.
Yeah.
And what happened? Because you don't
Great
have
question.
dreads anymore. So.
No.
And I think the next time I saw you, you didn't have dreads.
Yeah.
You had hair like you do.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us about that? But,
So...
briefly.
Yeah. So my dreads were my pride and joy, really. I loved them. Again, alternative personality. So they were part of my identity of who I was and who I wanted to be. Especially then being a Christian, I was like, yeah, I'm a cool Christian. I can reach the alternative with my dreadlocks. And so for me it was a forbidden area that I would not allow God to touch, and it was uncommunicated expectation that I just assumed that he knew that he was not allowed to touch my dreadlocks. And so this second time that we were in Indonesia, we're there, and again, almost every single day, someone would come up to me and they said, I just had a dream about you. And I'm like, uh-oh. Someone says I've had a dream about you. Freak out a little bit. And they'd say, oh, in my dream, you were with a bunch of women and you were undoing your dreadlocks. So are you thinking about undoing your dreads? And I said, oh, no way. Next day, someone comes up and they said, oh, I really feel like you're about to undo your dreadlocks. Is that something that you've been thinking about? I said, no way. Next day, someone would come up, oh, I just had a dream about you, or like it was constant. And I got to the end of the trip and I said, Lord, I'm not undoing my dreads. It's just a no-go zone. Don't tell me to undo my dreads. I'm still living in my van at this point. And so I'm sleeping in my van, and as I wake up, again, the surround sound in the atmosphere, and God just spoke to me, and it was the first thing that I heard as I woke up, and he said, Marlee, when will you stop hiding behind your dreadlocks? And as soon as he said that, it was like snapshots, like all these shots throughout my life of scenes of every time that I felt like I was in pain or hurting or afraid or anxious, and I didn't want anyone to see that, to see how I was. I didn't want to admit to anyone how I was. I would put my hair, my dreads, in this really big bun on top of my head, like a pineapple.
I remember that.
And I didn't realize, it was subconscious, but I did it every single time. As soon as I felt anxious, or as soon as I felt pain or scared, I'd put my hair up, and suddenly it was this pseudo-personality. And I didn't want anyone to ask me, are you okay? I wanted to present to everyone that I had everything all together and that I was Happy Marlee. That was like my label, Happy Marlee. And so I was hiding. And so when God said, when are you going to stop hiding behind your hair? And he showed me all of my points of pain. It was then a moment where I could either ignore him and stay in the points of pain, or open up that area of my heart and go, okay, Lord, I'm giving you permission to now address that. And so I decided I would undo my dreadlocks. And it took 7 women and 11 hours. And we undid my dreadlock one by one by pulling it apart to savour as much hair as possible.
Did you find any, like, gold and silver and money in there?
I wish I found some gold and silver. I found a lot of fluff. A lot of fluff. Hopefully not many dead animals, but a lot of fluff. And I cried the whole time. The whole 11 hours I sobbed. I sobbed and I sobbed and I sobbed because I was saying yes to Jesus, opening the area of pain that I'd hidden behind. And that's my, I don't know if bias is the right word, but my go-to is I hide or I run. I run and hide. I internally hide and I externally run.
Fight or flight.
Yeah.
So, how old were you then?
I would have been about 19.
So here we are, you are now 29.
Yes.
Still single?
Yes.
Still looking. So, 10 years. Been a lot of change.
Yeah.
I've watched as you've gone from that 16-year-old girl and battled and warred through all kinds of wrestles and struggles, from the demonic wars, being set free and delivered, the healing of the brokenness, the repair of fractures within you. And and the rearranging of the view that you have of Jesus. So the view you have of Jesus now is that he's your friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you wrote a song called Friend Forever. A wonderful song. And we'll put up some songs at some point, and I think they're going to bless you a lot. And so, you know, we have quite a few homegrown songs here at my father's house that you've written and that we've co-written together. And your worship life has grown and developed, I think, wonderfully, and it's still growing, it's still developing. Out there is an entire worship community. Musicians who are brilliant musicians, wonderful at what they do. Is there something you would like to say to the worship community? As a person who has grown up through music, as a singer and a musician, and a good one, is there something that you've watched and seen, and as you've engaged Christianity and worship that's around and about? Do you want to speak to that?
Specifically with worship?
Yeah. I think you've learnt some things. Would you like to speak to that?
I think fall in love with Jesus. He's why we worship. He's the King of everything. He already loves you. So as you falling in love with him, it's that divine dance. But don't sell yourself.
Yeah, that's good.
Don't sell yourself to the world. Don't sell your soul. It's precious. Jesus made it. He made you. And he loves you.
And that's even not selling your soul to Christian fame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's huge. I think you're precious. You're really precious, and worship is precious. Protect it. Really protect it.
So you have lots of people out in the Christian life who have lived on the end of, they've grown up as Christians. And this applies to those who haven't, and their families are fractured. And fractured families are becoming more and more and more common. And so, what do you want to say to those people, whether young or whether they're old, or whether this has happened 50 years ago or it's happened a week ago? What would you like to say to people that have lived through that fracture?
That's a great question.
What do I do with what that fracture has done inside of me?
I think you can't run away from pain. Pain is undeniable. It doesn't matter how it has happened to you. Everyone has experienced pain and you can't escape it. So my encouragement, in the same way that the Lord said to me, don't hide behind your hair. Don't run away from your pain. As much as it hurts to even face it, the point that you can recognize your pain and be really real with that and go, actually, no, this is causing me pain. That's your first point of recognition, and you're vulnerable with yourself. When you can be vulnerable with yourself, you can then be vulnerable with the Lord, and that's when healing happens.
Yeah,
because you've opened the door to allow the Holy Spirit, who is the comforter and the healer, he can then come in and bring healing. And no matter what, as soon as you are vulnerable with yourself and with Jesus, there is going to be the beginning process of healing and restoration, and you can't help that because you've allowed it.
You gave yourself to a life in the Word, in the Scripture, so you read Scripture a lot.
I love it.
You wake up in the morning, you're reading Scripture, you spend a lot of time in the New Testament and in the Scripture, and you spend a lot of time worshipping. And you're devoted to the fellowship of the saints.
Yeah.
And you know, these are the three things that you should learn to do well.
Yeah.
Is to be in the Word, particularly the New Testament, but the whole Bible, to be in the Scripture, because it's alive for you on the inside. It works with the Holy Spirit to transform and change you. In the fellowship of the saints, as we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship one with another. And the blood of Jesus cleanses us from all sin. And truly that fellowship is with the Father and the Son, Jesus. And so what I found is, as within the context of fellowship, those who are free in that way within fellowship presence of God is very common. And lots happens, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to go a couple of days without someone getting delivered and set free, right?
That's true.
So you've been through so much change. So much change. Is the future looking good?
Oh, more than good. Because Jesus is in it.
Well, this is Marlee Neighbour. Very soon you will hear from her sister, Jasmine Neighbour. Marvellous, wonderful person that you will adore and love to hear her story. I just want to close out today and ask Marlee just to pray very briefly for us, for you. Would you like to do that?
I'd love to. Jesus, I just thank you so much for everything that you've done in my life and everything that you're doing in everyone's life. I ask, Lord, that you would reach out your hand to pull up the people that are drowning, the people that are in pain, that feel like pain is suffocating them. Would you reach out your hand to pull them above the water, Lord? I pray for healing. I pray for restoration.
Bless you.
I just pray that people would see your face and experience your presence, Lord.
To know you, Jesus.
Yeah.
Help us to have our eyes on you, Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith. Now, I hope you're enjoying Ordinary People, Miraculous Lives. We are coming to you from my father's house in North Brisbane, in Queensland, Australia. We're new at this, and we love help, so we've got our arms open for help. But you can help us by pressing that like, give it a like, press that share button, and subscribe. And don't forget, my friends, Everyday Exorcist, you really want to have a listen to them. Great people, marvellous people. The other ones I want to give a shout out to is Remnant Radio. Excellent podcasting group of guys, group of pastors who do Remnant Radio. Jump on them and you'll have a lot of fun with that. So this is us signing out today from this part of it. Lots of wonderful interviews coming. We're going to be coming to you with a couple who just gotten recently married but have come from broken situations, and it's a wonderful story coming up. We've got Jasmine, who I just said, coming up. And we've got the second interview with Carol, my wife, the marvellous, beautiful, astounding woman that she is. And she's got some great stories for you. But she doesn't even know she's got those great stories yet until I ask her those questions. So anyway, we bless you today. Lord, let your face shine upon your people. Yeah. Lord, anyone who doesn't know you, touch them with your power.
Yes.
That watches this. Let them hear that message that I have a Father in heaven who loved me so much that he sent his Son here. Yeah. Just to come looking for me. And when he found us, he filled us with his life, and then he sent the Holy Spirit. So we could have God living in us and walking with us and getting us to walk through this life and to be victorious. It's hard, this Christian life, but it's a miracle life.
Yeah.
And if we let Jesus have his way, you'll have a miraculous life. So bless you today. You have a wonderful day and a wonderful week.